Morning, dear students. I am Sanju Hazdia, Assistant Professor of English at Government College Ratangad. Today, we will study the second coming poem by W.B. Yeats. And this poem is included in BA Part 2, Paper First by Maharaja Ganga Singh University, Bikaner. And in this video, I will give introduction of the poet, introduction of the poem, and summary of the poem. So first of all, introduction of the poet. As you know, poet is W.B. Yeats, and this is the introduction of the poet. W.B. Yeats was born in Dublin, Ireland on June 13th, 1865. William Butler Yeats was the son of a well-known Irish painter, John Butler Yeats. He spent his childhood in County Sligo, where his parents were raised, and in London. He returned to Dublin at the age of 15 to continue his education and study painting, but quickly discovered he preferred poetry. Born into the Anglo-Irish land-owning class, Yeats became involved with the Celtic Revival, a movement against the cultural influences of English rule in Ireland during the Victorian period, which sought to promote the spirit of Ireland's native heritage. Though Yeats never learned Irish Gaelic himself, his writing at the turn of the century drew extensively from sources in Irish mythology and folklore. So he has used Irish mythology and folklore in his poems. Also, a potent influence on his poetry was the Irish revolutionary Modgon, whom he met in 1889, a woman equally famous for her passionate nationalist politics and her beauty. Though she married another man in 1903 and grew apart from Yeats, and Yeats himself was eventually married to another woman. Yeats was deeply involved in politics in Ireland, and in the 20s, despite Irish independence from England, his works reflected a pessimism about the political situation in his country. There were dire political situation in his country, so he was pessimist about them, and the rest of Europe paralleling the increasing conservatism of American counterparts in London, T.S. Eliot and Ezra Pound. His work after 1910 was strongly influenced by Pound. Becoming more modern in its concision and imagery, but Yeats never abandoned his strict adherence. Adherence means stick to traditional verse. So he was stick to traditional verse forms. He had a lifelong interest in mysticism and the occult, which was off-putting to some readers, but he remained uninhibited in advancing his idiosyncratic philosophy, and his poetry continued to grow stronger as he grew older. Appointed a senator of the Irish Free State in 1922, he is remembered as an important cultural leader. As a major playwright, he was one of the founders of the famous Abbey Theatre in Dublin. It is very important. So, who founded Abbey Theatre in Dublin? So, W.B. Yeats founded that theatre. And as one of the very greatest poets in any language of the century, W.B. Yeats was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1923 and died in 1939 at the age of 73. Now, introduction of the poem. And our today's poem is The Second Coming. So, this is the introduction of the poem. The Second Coming is a poem written by Irish poet W.B. Yeats in 1919, first printed in the Dial in November 1920, and afterwards included in his 1921 collection of verses Michael Robertus and the Dancer. The poem uses Christian imagery regarding the apocalypse and second coming to allegorically describes the atmosphere of post-war Europe. So what was the situation of the Europe after war? It is considered a major work of modernist poetry and has been reprinted in several collections, including the Norton Anthology of Modern Poetry. So this is the introduction of the poem, and now summary of the poem. The speaker describes a nightmare scene. The falcon, turning in a widening gyre spiral, cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Anarchy is loosed upon the world. There is anarchical scene in the whole world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best people, the speaker says, lack all conviction, but the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely, the speaker asserts the world is near a revelation. Surely the second coming is at hand. No sooner does he think of the second coming, then he is troubled by a vast image of the spirits mundi, or the collective spirit of mankind. Somewhere in the desert, a giant sphinx, a shape with lined body and the head of a man, a gaze as blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving while the shadows of desert birds reel about it. The darkness drops again over the speaker's sight, but he knows that the Sphinx 20 centuries of stony sleep have been made a nightmare by the motions of a rocking cradle and water of beast. He wonders, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. Because of its stunning, violent imagery and terrifying ritualistic language, the Second Coming is one of its most famous and most anthologized poems. It is also one of the most thematically obscure. It is very obscure, very difficult to understand. It is safe to say that very few people who love this poem could paraphrase its meaning to satisfaction. So you should also read this poem and you should understand this poem because it is very beautiful poem. Structurally, the poem is quite simple. The first stanza describes the condition present in the world, things falling apart, anarchy. It presents anarchical situation, and the second surmises from those conditions that a monstrous second coming is about to take place, not of the Jesus we first knew, but of a new Messiah, a rough beast, the slouching sphinx rousing itself in the desert and lumbering toward Bethlehem. This brief exposition, though intriguingly blasphemous, is not terribly complicated, but the question of what it should signify to reader is another story entirely. Yeats spent years crafting an elaborate mystical theory of the universe that he described in his book A Vision. This theory issued in part from Yeats' lifelong fascination with the occult and mystical, and in part from the sense of responsibility Yeats felt to order his experience within a structured belief system. The system is extremely complicated and not of any lasting importance except for the effect that it had on his poetry, which is of extraordinary lasting importance. The theory of history is articulated in a vision centers on a diagram made of two conical spirals, one side the other, so that the widest part of one of the spirals rings around the narrowest part of the other spiral and vice versa. Yeats believed that this image, he called the spiral's gyres, captured the contrary motions inherent within the historical process, and he divided each gyre into specific regions that represented particular kinds of historical periods and could also represent the psychological phases of an individual's mind. The Second Coming was intended by Yeats to describe the current historical moment. The poem appeared in 1921. In terms of these gyres, Yeats believed that the world was on the threshold of an apocalyptic revelation. As history reached the end of the outer gyre, to speak roughly, and began moving along the inner gyre, the Second Coming is written in a very rough iambic pentameter. So this is the form of the poem. So what is the form of the poem? It is written in very rough iambic pentameter, but the meter is so loose and the exceptions so frequent that it actually seems closer to free verse with frequent heavy stresses. The rhymes are likewise haphazard. Apart from the two couplets with which the poem opens, there are only coincidental rhymes in the poem, such as man and son. So I think you understood the introduction of the poet, introduction of the poem and summary of the poem, and I will explain this poem in my next video. So I think you enjoy this video, and thanks for watching this video.